fuck are you?
An ARC Stockton Homemakers Commission in partnership with Home Manchester by Vici Wreford-Sinnott. Siege Part 1. The Wrong Woman Discussions. 1E. Agency. Part 1 of the Siege Commission centres on a series of 5 films with disabled performance makers discussing transgressive women, featuring Melissa Johns, Julie McNamara, Tammy Reynolds, B. Webster and Vici Wreford-Sinnott. Dedicated to all disabled women artists and activists making a difference to our world. Thank you. Audio description. Images of 6 women fill the screen. Vicky has teal hair and a spotty scarf to match. Julie Mac has short brown hair and is wearing her favourite blue jacket. Melissa has long blonde hair and is wearing a purple and blue top. B has long brown hair in a ponytail and is wearing a Kiss t-shirt. Tammy has short blonde curly hair and is wearing dildo earrings and a pink top. Sue, our BSL interpreter, has short blonde hair and is wearing a dark blue t-shirt. Everyone is seated in their home environments and there are a mix of group shots and solo shots. And finally, is it actually possible to bring about change and have agency, given the status society tries to force upon us? Can we only ever be a freak show? Does any of that matter?
Yeah, Tammy's response that sort of slightly led into that then, Vicky. Tammy, I sort of just went and sat in the living room for a minute just for a quick change of scenery and just found myself really thinking about what you just said. I was like, yeah, it just made me think I'm also going to be standing up in front of lots of crowds of people telling this story, being very open about, and it's that thing of, are these the same people that also go on sites like that and do and say awful things, and if so, then what's my yeah, gosh, it's the minefield. You've opened up a whole new one there for me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. I just really want to have a night of drinking wine and talking about it now, face to face.
Let's do it.
You know what I want to say, Tammy, I put across you then. I wanted to just mention Adrienne Tussette's work from the Wow Wow Girls. She did a piece called Asking For It. And she does that piece with, she's only dressed in the top part. She's got false breasts. She's got a jumper on. She's got a little blero and a wig. And she comes on stage. The rest of her is stark naked. So she's flashing herself from the beginning. And the whole thing is a disruption of rape jokes on stage. And she's a comedian. She got the Fringe first a few years back in Edinburgh and in Sydney Festival. I think it was done in 2017. But have a look for Asking For It. It's a brilliant piece of work. And it's so scary. Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat. But it made me think about one-woman shows and who we dare to step out and tell our stories in front of. Who's in the audience?
Yeah.
Because she knows damn well there's going to be people there who, I mean, particularly the male gaze, there's going to be people there who are fetishists. There's going to be people there who's just staring at her cunt. There's going to be people there who she will change. And she said, unless I'm prepared to go that far out there and do this, it's not worth saying it at all.
And that thing about placing yourself in a public space is a political act, on a stage, in a photograph. For us, it will only ever be, I think, a political act. It's art, but it's also political. I mean, I find that as someone whose body is looked at because it's so much larger than what's expected. I'm constantly performing one thing or another, depending on where I am and who I'm in front of, and if it's kids sniggering at a bus stop, or if it's people being abusive in a shopping centre, or but I police myself even before I get there to, you know, just to be in public space and to have a different body is yeah, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I'm just gonna oh, Tammy.
Well, I just a little quick anecdote thing is whenever I do drag shows, I get people coming up to me asking me when I'm going to perform, when I'm performing, and I always pretend to not understand what they mean, and just go, what, performing? What's that? I don't know. I'm always, aren't I performing? When are you performing? And that's just quite fun, and I think it's so. I think there's like. Yeah, a lot to be said about like disabled performativity stuff, because you have to kind of make kind of what Melissa was talking about, of how you spend so much time making everyone else okay with your body.
Yeah.
Before you realise that maybe you don't even know how you feel about it. And it's that kind of thing of like the amount of times I've watched a film and there's been a midget gag, of course, or a game show, or anything. And it's a midget gag, and I feel the eyes look at me, and you have to go like, oh, you know, here we go again.
Oh, it's horrible feeling, isn't it? There's a lot where people suddenly get an arm whacked off, or and you sort of feel these heads go, and you're going.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, maybe they're not. Do you know what? Maybe only a few of them are. Maybe none of them are. Maybe it's all in my head. But if it is all in my head, or in our heads, it's only that seed's only been planted by something, hasn't it? So and
yeah, and it's also like, why do we perform that response? Why are we not actually just being angry and going, actually, that's not great, or whatever? Like,
yeah.
why are we okay with that?
Flip tables as well, because I did the drag queen show with my best friend Jamie, and it was called Everything Will Be Perfect, and me and Jamie had this brilliant idea that we flip the table on them and make them in our positions. So I got Jamie to stand and sign for 5 minutes without any interpretation or access to that information, and I was behind the orders, and I could see and hear the people go access to interpreters, whereas our access, so oh my god, they only care about access. That's that he keeps like, but so that's why I like to flip, and people call me aggressive quite a lot. But is it because I'm disabled, I'm a woman, I'm mixed race, or I'm PSX? Take a pick. But so I do try to. I do challenge people sometimes, but too much, but that's me, because I do not want to take a back seat, and I can't let people control my narrative. I can't let people control what I want to do. I can't go, I'll just take a back seat and I'll do these things without supporting the community. I can't do that, because in Scotland, we don't really have deaf actors on stage, even though 10 of us graduated. But in England, I could get a lot of jobs, but at the same time aware that deaf actors, deaf directors been working the backstage for the last 20, 30 years, and they're the reason why I could be there. So I want to provide that for the next generation. But yeah, I love doing drag to challenge people's perception as well.
I think, and this kind of moves on to the last point as well, but I think, and what Julie was saying a bit earlier, of how I think crip theory and queering and like crip and queerness are the most productive and accessible forms of activism in relation to disability. Like the best art that I've ever, the best art full stop, regardless of whether they were disabled or not, was Catherine Araniello's work.
Catherine
Araniello. I will send over some links, but she sadly died last year, February last year.
Yeah, please.
But she made a lot of work where it was more, she was kind of disabling the audience as she worked, and she would always, she like used to, if you wanted to collaborate with her on stage, she'd make sure she'd run you down in her wheelchair just before you go on stage. And things like that. And that was queer. And I think the best accessible shows that I've seen tend to be in queer spaces as a rule. When it's in terms of keeping the art there, like a lot of theatres that have money, sure, they can do the audio description and they can do the BSL and they can do a lot of things, but it's cold and clinical, and like Julie said, it's added on. But when it's queer spaces, or queer art by queer artists, it tends to be just beautifully synonymous.
Because like I did a show called, I created a show for drama school called House Up Ladies.
Sorry, what was it called?
House Up Ladies. Well, I'm now writing a script based on that, but the playwright studio, so we'll go out there somewhere. But basically, I want to talk about gender and BSL, just like what if BSL is more powerful than English, because at the moment English is so much more powerful than BSL, and what if, you know, like cisgendered feminine women was in power, because I am better of white feminism, like feminism that only support white women. That's it. That's not feminism to me. So I got, at the beginning of the show, I got the audience to come in and I only put white women at the front seat. They couldn't sit with anyone else. It was just white women, and then all the men, and a lot of them complained, why can I sit with my wife, blah, 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 and stuff like that. So I really like to flip the table on that. What it feels like to be in that position of power, or is that the right reason, or is that the wrong reason? Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do. People, I love to do interactive theatre, and I like people, we can forcing people to choose a choice at the end of the show. But both choices are terrible. Is that what we'd rather? Just like, that's the kind of thing really interested in to see. Yeah. So people go, I do like people leave, they going, oh, that was a lovely piece of theatre. That's not what my work is about. I want people to leave, go, fuck. I want them to feel bad and guilty, but that makes them change afterwards. And I'm up for it, because I made a mistake. I was so bi for picking the path, because I am bi, but society tells you that bi women are quite bad, they're greedy. But I was in such denial that I am bi. So I want people to realise it's your perception as well, that causeless, and it's not too late to realise.
I think. Sorry.
Sorry, no, you go.
It's just, I'm bi and greedy, but I'm not greedy because I'm bi.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on with it.
I think as well, Vicky, with that last point about, you know, can we kind of break through and stuff like that, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's like, I can absolutely see a world where we could one day break through in terms of our industry, but there's breaking through, and then there's audiences and what they still think when they look at us. So sure, an audience can watch and you know, does that mean we've broken through? I don't know. Does it mean that when we're here, there and everywhere, when we're putting on our own shows, our own live shows, when we're in TV shows, when we're in magazines, when we've completely broken through and we are fully represented, I guess have we still broken through? Because are we still going to have, you know, lots of society that just can't shift sort of previous judgments or connotations, because there's watching and then there's truly, I guess it's a bit like what Tammy said, there's watching something and going, no, it's absolutely fine, I'm genuinely just watching this because I want to watch something good, and it is what it is. Yeah. Or there's that thing of going, I'm watching this, but I'm still very aware that that person is disabled. I'm still that's very much in the forefront of my mind. And I guess it's, you know, you can run every scheme under the sun to try and break through this industry so that we have agency, we get to tell our stories, we're included in everyone else's stories. But I guess I would love to know when the world will genuinely watch us for our stories, or at least a greater percentage will.
Tammy?
So I think that there's a relationship between breaking through, and I guess we all have different ideas of what that through might mean, and the idea of audiences, how they engage. And I think there is a relationship where, in order to break through, there needs to be audience engagement in the first place. And so there needs to be, when as society learns and changes and whatever, and like this pandemic could be something that could be an interesting learning curve for a lot of people who aren't disabled, and understand and teach them different ways of access and things like that, and show how you can digitize and do remote working and what remote really means and that kind of stuff. And that in itself will generate a different way of engaging with art and engaging with disability art or disabled artists. But I guess I think that if we've broken through, then the other things also happened, because a performer isn't a performer without an audience, and an audience wouldn't turn up if there wasn't a performer.
I suppose for me it's knowing, is there times when an audience can sit there and watch something because they're interested, but actually their mind was still focused on something else? Do you know what I mean? So they could still turn up and be there and they could still watch, but how much are society really ready to kind of work on changing perceptions, I suppose? Like, can you turn up just because you were really excited to hear about those sex pictures of that girl with one arm, or are you actually really ready to just know a lot more about that story and see a performer telling a story? Do you know what I mean? I think but I think absolutely, it's they really do kind of go hand in hand, don't they? And they will hopefully break together.
Yeah, because I think the most political act we can make is us being ourselves. You know what I mean? Even you are women who like to do traditional stuff, but it's by your own choice. Go for it. I think as long as we are who we are and we show that to the world on stage, I think that's the best thing to see on stage, really. And that's what I try to do. That's what I strive for.
I also think that we make, there's an impact, we make completely unexpected changes. We have no idea where the work reaches. So 3 tiny stories. Boss, keep the reins on me. Pigtails, I wrote in 2001, had an impact on the perception of gender and legislation in New Zealand, and perception of gender in mental health clinics here in England. Pigtails was the story of a little girl raised as a boy. And all those years back, it kind of broke the mold on our vision of gender in this country. It had an impact that I had no idea it would ever have. That wasn't the intention of the work. And it was a response to a commission through Exposure Festival of Disability Arts at Jackson's Lane. And they had no idea where it would go either. Another piece I wrote was Whisper Me Happy Ever After, which was written from the testimonies of children who had come from countries where there was so much violence, and or otherwise children here who were experiencing domestic violence in the home. And from their stories and from the work of our amazing cast, I mean, that piece of work has now been touring for 7 years, and it's had an impact on the way schools treat children with mental health issues, but it's also had a really positive impact on the kind of teams that need to be available, not just for children, but for teachers on the front line, trying to deal with children from many different cultural backdrops, whose first language will probably not be English when they're in their first years at school. and how those teachers can cope. So we now have things like Children's Champion. We have access to counselling services, etc. It's made a big change. A completely unexpected change from a piece I wrote called The Knitting Circle, which was written about women who'd survived the long care system, women who'd been in asylums, long stay hospitals. And I was absolutely flooded with stories from those women when we got through, put word out through Survivors Speak Out, National Mind, and Out of Sight, Out of Mind. The impact was unforeseen because actually it hit a zeitgeist at the time, because we were just reaching the kind of tour nationally here with the Knitting Circle when Taoiseach Enda Kenny in the Dáil in Dublin in Ireland was making his apology to the survivors of the Magdalene laundries. And myself and Charlotte Kim Yonchu, who's a long-term collaborator, disabled artist and filmmaker who runs Film Pro, we went to film in a hospital I had lived and worked for 2 years in the 80s. And when that work hit a national tour here in England, that hospital was forced to change its name because it is still open. It's still in existence. And we had no clue that we'd have that impact. So I would say to you that it's feathers in the wind once we've put our creative babies out there and our ideas are traveling. We have not one clue whose heart, whose mind we're going to touch, whether we're educators or mischief makers, whether we're radical activists or passionate artists. I suggest we're all of those things, but we've no bloody idea who we touch. And that's what still thrills me. It keeps me alive thinking about it.
That's brilliant, Julie. Yeah, that is such a brilliant way to describe it. And we we keep going, we keep making the work. And
never give up. Never give up.
Could I add one more thing? Just
yeah,
really short, which is fitting. But doing live art, especially live art, was the most. Showed me, it's the first time I felt truly powerful in this specific body, as this specific body. Like, being a disabled person, you are normally just small and weak and meek and mild. And doing live art and having that experience with the theatre company asking me to change something because I was scared. I was like, ooh, and they're scared because I'm small. This is fun. And I think if all of us keep making work that makes us feel proud and powerful in the bodies and minds that we have, then those feathers will fly wherever the fuck they want to go.
Yeah. This is who I am. I'm the living proof. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I am. Who the fuck are you?
Some thank yous. Title credit, The Wrong Woman, is a term used by Julie McNamara in her theatre practice and research. Thank you to BSL Interpreter Sue Lee, ARC Stockton, Annabelle Turpin and Daniel Mitchelson, Home Manchester, Jude Christian and Kevin Jameson, to all of the disabled practitioners who keep me going every day, my gorgeous family. Please note this was filmed on Zoom during 2020 lockdown. Piss on pity.
This is who I am. I'm the living proof. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I am. Who the fuck are you?